At the end of last stream, we sort of splined about 70-80% for a first pass, and this is where it got to.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable.
Still issues in there, but I'm just trying to get a first pass through on Spline, and then we can clean a few things up. Okay, so I'm gonna continue on this for now. If anyone has any work they want me to look at, that's something else that I've been trying to do, is give feedback. Look at this, it's all over the place, all these keys now, because we've got messy in Spline. Right. One thing that I noticed from looking at that play blast, look, my eyes were too sore to see yesterday, was I think this bobbing up and down is too much on this. I kind of want it to hit the pose a bit harder, so what I'm going to do is look at the translate Ys that I did, these two curves here, and just scale them back a bit. So both the up and the down here, I'm just going to scale them to where the next pose is by blending them forward with Animbot. And now let's let the cache catch up and we can have a look. I'll shrink this down so it doesn't do as much. Yeah, so now he's hitting that pose. He's still got that overshoot in the cog, in the translate, but it's just not as much, and it's just a bit... lets him hit this pose a bit. He's still a bit floppy. I want the head and stuff to be a bit more solid. Looks like it's the neck that's causing that. I'll do that. And once that's done, I'll get on to the next section. Translate X, maybe. Let's have a look at it. Going on. This is where I was going from one, so the curves aren't going to look very clean. I think it's just this is too much. Let's just tone that back. A bit more of an ease out. Start to ease that back in. See what that looks like. And I think it might be a bit the Z as well. So let's look at what's happening with that. See? Maybe. Doesn't necessarily look like it though, does it? Okay. It's partially this. Yes, it was partially that. There's still a bit of stuff going on there, but for this first pass, I think I'll leave that section and we're going to get straight in to this last bit. So maybe from around here, I'm just going to section this bit off and focus on this. Cool. Cool. Yeah, so we're going to focus on this stuff. I think the main thing for this is snapping up the head. There's some stuff left over from the last bit that I was doing where it looks like the curves don't match up, so the spine sort of leans back weirdly at the start. So let's clean that up first. That just this. It looks like that's where I was last time. I ended about here, so let's just match those up so it isn't as messy. Is the root doing that as well? Maybe like the Z and stuff might be doing a bit of something. Yeah, this is looking pretty gross. What's happening? Easing out. That's... boy, these are... Was the sound of Lucas from Mother 3? Yeah, it was, I think. This is like a games sort of remix playlist that I have on in the background of some copyright-free stuff. It sounded like it, didn't it? It's the final smash that they have in Smash Bros as well. That's what I know it from. Okay. Okay. I'm going to switch my lights over because this one sounds like it's burning up. I'm just fiddling because I'm trying to find where... I guess he's kind of easing out. Animation. Is the question just animation as a whole? It's a big question. I want to see if these match up from the last section I was animating. Like I settled here, and then this is... okay. Okay, that's what I'm doing. That's fine. So this is kind of a spline stage that I'm in. So I did the blocking stage initially, which I think I might have accidentally overwrit the play blast for it, but let's have a look to see if it actually is still in pieces. Oh no, it's here. So this is every sort of 4 frames is keyed, which is kind of a workflow I'm comfortable with. And then what I did on the last stream was go from this to this part of it, where I went into Spline and started breaking things up. Lots to polish still. And now what I'm doing is finishing off that first pass. Nice blocking. Thanks, man. Not gonna lie, it's a little intimidating seeing people like you, professional, work in the graph editor. Do you have any advice for a student? Sure. How do you pick audio tracks? How do you push your animation so it differs from the original movie clip it comes from? So let me show you the reference. I guess I'll try and tackle the question about reference first, and then I'll go on to the question about the graph editor, and I'll try and be a bit more in depth when I'm using it to tell you what I'm doing, because I guess I'm just getting ahead of myself here. Let me show you the reference that I had. I know it'll be in here still. Reference edit. Good luck with your studies. Yeah, definitely good luck with your studies. Okay, my music's a bit loud in my ear. I'm going to turn it down a touch. Okay. So here's the reference. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Here you go.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
So if you compare that to the animation, I'm just trying to push pose. It's similar kind of movement and the structures here, but it's making things a bit snappier, pushing poses for appeal, and just generally making things as clear as possible. So like silhouettes of things, so this wouldn't overlap the arm as much, and different things would really break it up to. And then I've really exaggerated things like this deplorable thing, where in my animations so far it comes up quite a bit, and different things like that. Hopefully that kind of makes sense for the reference question. Animation graph header, that's what you were asking about. So let me just work and I'll talk about what I'm doing in the graph editor whilst I'm doing it. So what I'm doing here is now that I've got into this spline pass from my blocking, what I like to animate first is the thing that's leading the action, or the main kind of move of the driving force. So in this case it's the head, because he's coming around with his head. He's kind of coming around with his neck, but I like to animate the head and then copy stuff down onto the neck often. Let's look at the neck. The head, sorry. So what's it doing? Looks like down is up in here. He's kind of anticipating this way. And then he's doing like an under arc where his nose is going to swing under and round. So that's why this comes up and then comes back down again. I'm going to... Maybe I can delay the X. So what I'm always thinking about when I'm doing this stuff is all 3 of these channels. So the Y, the X, and the Z. The Z, the X, and how to break all that stuff up. I don't think it was ref reference, but how do you make sure to differ the acting from the original visual source? Oh, okay. Watching my animation colleague now. Pop the beers open already. Good shit, man. Oh, okay. So the question was more how I differ from the original reference. So I didn't ever look at the audio, like where the audio came from, because that kind of tampers with how I interpret the dialogue. I often try to think of the situation they're in. So here it's a guy in a prison cell, maybe someone... to be fair, this isn't the best example for acting choices, I'll straight up admit it. But what I try to do on ones where I think about it more is what's the context, what's the situation they're in, and how that affects the acting that they might be doing, and what's the subtext, so what they're thinking, and if that's in line with directly what they're saying, or if they're saying like, haha, yeah, that's really funny, but the way like I said that, the line is actually different to what my acting is. The acting is like a sarcastic, it's definitely not. So that you've got to think about how you can push your kind of narrative into the dialogue that you've got. The Apollo rig, I think it's about £20. I think it's 20% off at the moment, actually. Somewhere I saw it on sale, but it was about £20 when I bought it. And it's a really good rig. I'll continue and I'll talk about graph editor, because that's what we were thinking about. So what I was saying was each of these channels, I want them to kind of differ from each other so that they reach kind of the apexes of each direction at different times. So at the moment, this hits its apex. This hits its apex first this way. This then hits its apex after, and this doesn't hit its apex until way over here. So it's just kind of breaking things up so they're kind of fleshy and organic. So two things don't hit at the same time. It's more like blowy, and that's how you get free arcs as well. So then in chat, hi everyone. So let's work on, I'm just going to work on a channel at a time at the moment. So if you right click on here and you sync up to Graph Editor, then when you click on it, it will only show that channel, and it will also only show the keys in the timeline for that. There's a lot of the students in the UK who step remote work, especially right now, the situation. Studios, not students. Do you have any idea about that? Yeah, definitely. All of the jobs I've done this year have been remote. So I think basically all studios are open to remote work right now because they have to be. The government's even advised to do remote work. So all the jobs that I've had this year, all the freelance jobs and stuff have all been remote. Whereas the year before I was working in studio in London. And now I'm back at my family home at the moment, which is on the Isle of Wight, completely in the sticks. What's this doing? Do I want it to drag for a bit longer? So when I'm looking at this curve, basically what it's doing is easing to the most length forward that it is. The hotkey. The most length forward it is, and then it's not moving much. Easing, and then easing back and coming back up, and then it's coming back and settling. So that's kind of what this curve is doing. Maybe I'll give this a frame to ease towards a bit closer. So when I look at the animation, I'm thinking about that. I'm done with Paris right now. I don't want to do it. I want to try to do it a bit of work in the UK. Yeah. There's quite a good animation scene in the UK. It was mostly VFX in London for a while, and now more companies are coming out with like character animation work, which is what I do. So there's quite a few features going on in the UK at the moment. I'm going on to one at Axis in February. I got a bit of free time at the moment. That's why I've been doing this stream and stuff. Okay. So I quite like that for the X. I think maybe I could even scoop it lower, and we could really see what that looks like. So let's push the down bit even further. Don't want to offset. So now I think it just comes up too much, but I quite like it leaning forward. So I'm just going to fiddle with that a little bit. Cool. Let's look at the Y. What's happening in the Y? So he's recoiling back this way. I think that this should be a bit later, personally. I think it should keep dragging until the last bit and then flick around. So it's dragging and then it's going to be quite snappy. So this bit here is going to be quite sharp. This bit. Maybe to make it sharp, I'll have it ease out, and then it can really sharply over 2 frames kind of come round. And then overshoot. Going to keep going, and then it can settle back here. I'll give that a few more frames to settle. Let's look at that. Oh yeah, I saw that work for again. How do you slow in, slow out, and how does it look in the graph editor? So this right here is not really slowing out because it's going steeply outwards. But if I was to say put a key and drag it down towards this one, now what's happening is it's easing out this way and then going quickly in this part. So the steeper it is, the quicker it's going. So often what you want to do is have it go kind of quick in the middle in the in-betweens, especially for a bit more cartoony shots. It's quicker in the middle of the in-betweens, and then a little bit of padding for it to go somewhere, and then it's coming out slowly, and then it goes steep again here, and then it's padding back in here and coming back out and then settling again. So it's all kind of, it's all ease ins and ease outs throughout. Sometimes you want something to be snappy and really go, but it's dependent on the situation, but a lot of the time it's this kind of thing. So now that I've pushed that Y around, his nose is kind of doing that arc all the way around, right? So what's really leading this is, I think, the Z. I think he's dipping his head and coming around like this. So that's the Z rotating the head, sorry. So he's going to come around like this. Let me grab the Z. Yeah, so I have the Z come quite sharply up here. And then it looks like it's coming back already. So maybe I can lead it even more. And this doesn't really have any ease at the top. It just goes quickly around. And then I have a little overshoot and a settle again. But maybe I'll ease this in so it isn't drifting for that last bit. And it's just got a tiny bit left to go. Okay. I think the Y might be a bit too much on the final comeback bit. I think it's a bit too swimmy. I want it to kind of hit a bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these keys and use Animbot, hold down shift, which blends on the Tween Machine control, and just blend it back towards the key before this one. So now when we look at it, it doesn't come around quite as much. Cool. So, nice, thank you. So we're going to look at the neck. What I often like to do, and what I've sort of been doing lately is, I'm going to start with the X again, is copying curves. So I've got the information that I want for this, but I kind of want the neck to be doing the same thing, but maybe offset. So what I'll do is I'll copy it, go onto the neck. I'm going to snap buffer, which means that if I move something, say in here, it will show me a line where it was before. So that when I paste this in, then I can see where it was before up here, look. So I kind of want to have the cadence of the curve like I had before, but with the information from the other curve, the extra information, because I want it a bit more in depth. So then I've got to think about if I want to lead or follow with the neck. And I think I kind of want to lead with it. So I might move this. This was a bit too snappy, so I'm going to move that. But I'm going to move all of this a frame backwards, because then I'm leading with the neck a frame. So you'll see that. So now the head is a frame behind. The neck starts to go, and then the head catches up. Now the Z in the neck definitely needs a lot of work, so we'll look at that in a second. So he's like scooping under and around. Can you show us your student reel, please? I would love to see your progression as a 3D animator. I'll see if I can find something. So my student reel, I was more of a generalist, and I did a ton of roles. So on the like student film that I did and a bunch of other stuff, I did a bunch of roles on all of that stuff. And then when I finished university, I wanted to get into animation specifically. So I worked on that and did some courses and did some other bits and pieces to help me learn. Let me find my student reel. I'll let this play. Let's pause. You can even hear the sweet editing that I did.
Mickey's a mouse, Donald's a duck, Pluto's a dog. What's Goofy?
There you go. There's my real life finish uni with. that's you know, it's always weird looking back on old work. If you look back on old work and you think it's bad, then you've done a good thing, because it means you've learned good stuff. Thank you. We all, wow, you know, it's a few years old now, isn't it? What's that? 3 years? 3.5 years when I finished. Okay, let's look at the Z as well whilst we're doing that. I'm gonna copy the Z from the head again, like I did with the last bit, and look. Snap it once again and paste. I try and get it to have this little anticipate like I had before. But let's look at what it's doing. Okay, it's leading way too much. That's why I had this all the way down. So let's match that to start at least. I think this was dragging, so let's take this a few frames back. You love it, good. Happy you like. It got me a job in previs. I did previs first when I finished uni. Okay, let's look at what this Z is doing. Where's this going? I think I'm just going to have to do this on ones because it's looking totally weird. So let's do the Z on ones. And by that, I mean, I'm just going to go every frame. He out, good. By that, I'm just going to go through every frame and, or even twos, and just start to key things how I think it should be by eye. Like, I like to fiddle around with the graph editor, but a lot of the time you can just animate, bruh. Just animate. Gonna have them come all the way over. But that's a bit slow to come over based on how quick this is. Let's maybe just key here and get that over. Gonna everything on this frame. Come back a bit. Might be a bit too much to come back. Let's see. Very excited to become a 3D animator. Do you have any advice for students? Yeah, loads of advice. I think it's hard. It's a hard thing to learn, and it's weird because you want to both try out everything because there's so many areas in animation. You might want to become a modeler or a lighter or a comp person or texturing person, and you know, it goes on and on. TD, some technical roles, but every area is so massive that you can be a generalist, but it takes a very special type of person to be a generalist. And if you want to be a character animator specifically, I don't really know any people that do animation that aren't like just animators, because there's so much depth to animation and learning animation. So I kind of wished that I focused more on animation at uni instead of being a generalist, but that's in hindsight. And it also, I didn't get to this point without doing that stuff and learning from those experiences. So I don't know. I think figure out if you really want to do animation specifically, or if you want to do one of the other areas, because if you want to do one of the other areas, go ahead and do that. You kind of need to be full on if you're doing animation. It's very like difficult. Get this arcing under. And then settling back. And then I'll go in and fix the curves for whatever mad edits I've just done. Might be too much. And this is gonna, I like that final pose, but let's just look at the curves and see what I've done. Where did I get to? Forward. And it's coming back on itself. So let's kind of match these up so it's kind of similar. And this in. And I'm going to make it a bit less because I think it's a bit too much. And sharp. This is probably going to be messed up in a bunch of the other channels like the Z. So that's the Z. Yeah, we just kind of come back to grossness, so I'm going to move that around. Cool, that's looking better. That's sharper. Rotate Y. Did I mess with that? Ooh, looks like it. Let's get this down and ease all of this in. We're using Animbot little slider here. Yeah, he looks kind of... I think maybe the whole neck should go back a frame at this point because it's leading a bit too much. So maybe I'll have these outlast an extra frame, and I'll move all of these back a bit. Any good materials, sources, courses for people who want to push the anim skills on their own time? Yeah. I learned a lot. I did Anim Dojo, which I think is free at the moment, which is like an online animation schooly thing, but it's kind of different because it's more like live streams and like some set materials, but it isn't like feedback one-on-one stuff. It's just kind of back and forth. So I think this is the Anim Dojo login site. It was free for a while. I'm not sure if it's free at the moment. Might be, but they have like a 3D animation thing and some modules that helped me learn quite a bit when I was first starting. Yeah, they have some subjects here, like learning different things, which was quite useful for me. And then more recently and more difficult kind of stuff, I did a course with Anima Warriors that I was just looking at, called Hybrid Workflow, which is kind of more with the graph editor stuff that you were talking about earlier. And that's how I learned how to do all of this copy paste curve stuff. So that's this one, Hybrid Workflow. This one was really good. Okay. Okay, that might still be a bit early, to be fair. So let's just push all of this back again a frame. Now it feels too late, so maybe I was right before. Looking at this spacing on this chin. So it's getting bigger, gets bigger, and then this is kind of smaller, I think. This is a really big one. So maybe just for the sake of it, I'll go in on this one frame and tone that down a bit. So look, it has a bit further to go on the next frame. Now this frame's feeling too much, so let's tone that down. There you go. Now it's coming around with a bit better spacing. Okay, so I haven't really looked at the rotate Y on that yet. So let's look at the rotate Y on my head controller, which I've already done. And I'm going to copy that down onto the neck, so down through the chain. So the head's driving the action, the neck is basically inheriting what I had on the head. So I'm going to snap it so I can see where it went, paste it. Looks like I've changed it quite a lot by doing that. So what I'm going to do is tone that down and then kind of match this up closer to where it was before. So I've kept the information from the previous curve, but it's a little bit fiddle with. And then I might just offset this frame so that it isn't on the exact same frame as the head. And the driving action of the head turning then goes down to the next one. What kind of time is this? It's 3:30, Mac. Cool. So a bit horrid. So when stuff like this is happening, I probably just want this to simplify and just ease out and get progressively bigger and steeper as it goes on. So I'm just going to clean that up. Although I probably did that all on once, and that's why it's like that. But that looks fine. Cool. I think from here onwards, it's sort of moving a bit too much. So what I'm going to do is just grab all the keys after that. I set a key there and just going to blend back a touch. Thank you for the follow, Aki Monlet. Cool. So when we get into more of this head stuff, we can do some fun bits and pieces. But I guess I'll do it now because it's fun. So I can delay different parts of the head. So this guy has squash and stretch controllers on the top and the bottom. Thank you, Andriana. Thank you. Thanks for the follow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up parts of the head by doing this. So I'm going to delay the top of the head a bit. It's a bit much. I want it to kind of be a tiny bit until we get to the quicker parts of the movement. Like here, where I want to delay that. And then that can catch back up. Well, the head's kind of leading, so I don't want it to do too much. Maybe when this gets to here, this can go down a bit, so it kind of squishes in on itself. And then it can come up and settle, and maybe even overshoot a touch. Then settle back down here. Let's see what that looks like. It's a bit squishy. It might be too much. I'm going to turn on the caching thing so I can see. How do you know if a personal project is finished? Will, hi man. I think you just run out of time, right? So this is way too much, but I kind of like what I'm doing. I think it's just when you run out of stuff to do, like there's always more to polish, and I'm still learning tons about polish. But for me, like when I was working in TV and everything was like fast paced, when I started out in TV and I didn't know, I was a worse animator. I was actually quicker because I didn't know how to keep pushing a shot more and more. And then kind of the better I got, the more time I can spend in polish because I know more about what I'm doing. So there's still a bit too much. Let's just tone this down. But it's just a little bit of extra DL in there. And when I get to polish, this is the kind of thing I'm going to be doing where even within one area, there's like different things breaking and leading and following and all of this kind of stuff. I'm going to do the jaw as well. The jaw's kind of dragging, right? So as he comes back around this way, jaw's gonna drag and then flick around as he's coming around here. So let's see what that looks like. And then when it comes around to here, maybe I'll do it on 2s here and I'll overshoot it a touch. That might be too much. But this is also going to be linked to the lip sync, so I don't want to mess with it too much because then when I get to the lip sync, never finished, exactly Sturt. But we'll get some fleshiness in the face when we get to that. Right now I haven't really touched the face. Too much for me. I'm just gonna turn this all down. Cool. Okay, what else are we going to do? We need to go down to the chest because I haven't touched that yet. I think what I'll do is I'm going to do what I did on the neck and take the curve from the head because that's the leading action. Copy the rotate X on here and then in the rotate X on here. Look at it. Then snap it. Paste it. It's way too much, but we have a little bit more information than I did previously because I added this little overshoot. So that overshoot is going to carry through the body. I just need to tone it down a bunch. What I want to select. I might push this a bit more. Look, this has somewhere to go. Let's select all of this, scale it down. See what that looks like. There's 1-to-1 with the head. This cell looks way too much, so let's scale that back. One sec, I'll answer your question once I've done this tiny bit. Scale this back. So I don't want this to do too much, but I want it to have a little bit of that residual as it comes around. Just so it keeps it fleshy. And let me offset. I guess I'll offset the whole thing by 2 frames because we're going from the head and the neck was 1 frame and then the chest is 2 frames offset from each other. Funky in the curve. This still feels too much, so I'm just going to tone this down. But now we have the head leading and the chest behind it. Still too much. Yeah, it's still a bit too much, so let's just scale all of this back to that previous key. But all that information is carried through now. How'd you go about networking? I was surprised this morning because Ubisoft director followed me. He asked me if I was in the industry or if I was a student. I told him that I'm going to enroll in Animation Mentor. It's networking, a lot of it for me has just been working places, like where I've been working and who I've met through that, and then like friends of friends from previous jobs when we go out and do stuff and go to the pub and all these different things. I'm just going to move that up. And then also LinkedIn. A lot of the opportunities that I've got, especially being a freelancer this year, have been through posting my work on LinkedIn and getting a little bit of visibility from that. People liking and sharing the work that they've seen from me, and then recruiters and such getting in touch. 14 people today, that's very cool. The animation is super good, someone said at some point. Thank you very much. And Will said he had to go. No worries, Will. So this is kind of a first spline pass. So when we get super polishy, everything's going to get more and more tight and picky, and everything's going to be connected but tightened up enough that there's really strong poses, and you know, it just gets more and more in depth. There's some weird hold going on here, but I think that's coming from the root. We'll get to the root once I've done the chest. Right, so I'm going to leave that for now. Maybe I'll turn it down a touch. And I'm going to go on to maybe the Z for the head. The Z for the head, the Z for the chest, which I'm going to take from the head. Let me copy this. Snap the buffer on here. Paste this in. And we're going crazy. We're going all the way over here. Let me select all these keys. I'm going to use Tween Machine Animbot to ease these out. So let's clean. Select all of these and scale this way down. So I think in Animbot this slider can scale to the key on the left. So scale from neighbor left is shift middle mouse click. So I'm going to shift and middle mouse. And that's going to scale in towards that left key. So I can get it pretty much. I don't want to change the pose too much. So if I match these close together, it's not changing the pose, but the information before I get to the pose is going to be affected by what I've just copied. But it's still 1-to-1 with the head. So I'm going to offset it a couple frames. That was 3, I think. So I'm going to push back 1. Let's have a look. Cool. Yeah. Let's see what this is doing. I might soften this out a bit because I don't want it to be quite as snappy as the head. Cool. Let's look at it. So we get that little bit of connectivity, but I think it's the root that's doing. Maybe this is too much, and then the root's doing a lot of the stuff to make it floaty at the end. So we need to tighten up the root when I get to it. Yeah, it's definitely the root doing a bunch of stuff. The arm needs a lot of tightening up and cleaning as well. We'll get to that when we've done the main spine. Okay, so let's look at the rotate Y on here as well and see what that's doing. We're easing out here, it looks like. We'll see what this is actually before I start messing with it. Okay, so it's coming back around to kind of anticipate. It's winding up much like what the head is doing. And then it's coming down. And overshooting around on itself. And then settling back up. But then we have this crazy key where it's going in really far for some reason. So maybe what I want is just this to continue and ease in. So it's just slowly easing to a stop. Okay, definitely need to get down to the cog and look at that. I'm pretty sure I've done these now. Let's look at the cog and see if I can diagnose that weird issue that I was having. It's probably one of these doing something crazy. Fine. That one. What it is. So now this isn't going leaning forward a bunch. Shoulders look like they're going back a bunch though. Which I think is just a bit distracting whilst I'm doing this. So let me clean that up first and then I'll, once I've cleaned that up, get onto the body. Okay, back a bit. And the X. Don't even want anything on the X, I don't think. Okay. So now I need to get down the chain again. So we've done the head, then the neck, then the chest. The next thing down the chain is the body. So the residual going down is going to come from the head once again. Well, this time I can take it from the chest, where I've already edited the curves. Take this section on here. Chuck it onto here. Bit. Paste it. Scale it. Shift middle mouse I just remembered from last time I did it. Get that up to where it was before, so that the end pose isn't changing at all. Then I'm going to offset it a couple frames so that we are traveling down the body from the head, then the chest, then the body. Just offset it. I don't even know how many are offset by, so let me undo a bunch. Make sure I'm actually offsetting by 2 frames. Cool. Look at this. Thank you, Levro, for the follow. Cheers, man. You're just joining. I'm doing a spline pass on this acting shot. And this overshoot is way too much. So I'm going to turn this way back. So he's still got a little bit of that information, but it's just subtle. It doesn't need to be really big. Now that we've traveled down that chain, and the movement's kind of residual from the very top with the head, this is minimal now. Cool. Cool, that's looking good. So now I can get onto some of the other channels. So let's take the Z from here. Copy this ending bit that I haven't done yet. Get down the chain once again. Up the buffer once again. Paste once again. I have to flip it because it looks like it's in the wrong place. So I have a hotkey set up to flip things. Don't flip all the keys by the looks of it. What's happening here? I'm going to make these ease in so that it isn't messy. Clean that up a little bit. And get rid of this key because it's causing lumpiness. Thank you, Adina, for the follow. Cheers. Okay, what's happening then? This is leaning onto that front leg now. Coming onto that front leg and back around. But we need to scale it way up because we're nowhere near where I was on the last pose. Let's scale all of this up a bunch. Cool. And once again, this is going to be way less because we've come down from the head to the chest to the body, and the body's going to have the least kind of residual. So this is going to be way tighter to the previous pose. Okay, cool. Now I feel like the X here is too one-to-one with the chest still. That's this part. So I'm just gonna take that back a couple frames. Okay, now it's completely disconnected and feels horrible. So it's the fine balance. Maybe one frame. Maybe it's not about the timing and it's more about the spacing. So let's just smooth this out a bit so it's less sharp. And maybe then the settle can be delayed a little bit more. So we'll offset that frame. Feel that feeling a bit better. Feels like it's just hinging from here, which is annoying. I don't want. I want it to feel like a snake movement, so the head goes, then the chest, then the body. So here to here might be too much, so let's just have that a bit softer. But then it feels weird. It's a real fiddly. I might do some cheatiness with the chest in order to get this leading right. This is here coming forward a bunch. Might just have this overshoot a bit more. See how that works. Okay. I think that works. It's just too disconnected from the head. So what I might do is just take all of the X's for the chest and the root and push them back a frame so that they're less disconnected from the head. Weird starriness in that shoulder, but we'll get to the shoulder. Okay, that's feeling better in the body. I think one thing that can help, I have a tool here which is really useful. Well, let me turn this, doing any jankiness. It's this one here, FCM hider, and what you can do is select faces, turn off soft select. Turn off soft select, and then I can select the faces and I can create a button which hides those faces and turns them back on. So let's go in perspective because it'll be a bit easier to grab the arm. Faces. Select these. I don't want to see. There you go. That worked fine. So I'm just going to do it to screen camera. So it's this one. Add selection. And then that basically hides it. Looks like I've left the fingers out here though. The fingers just chilling. The fingertips. That's a separate object or something? It is a separate object. Okay, let's add that to here. And then it goes. And I'll do the same on this arm. That way I can just focus on the body and then I'll get to the arms when I get to the arms. That's the fingernails, which is the thing that was left hanging. Yeah, okay. Oh, it looks like I left some faces for this part though. Yeah, just select that. Oh, okay, I should have broken up the arms so that I can do one arm at a time, but I've just done them both on one. You can do them on separate ones and then it's kind of easy to do that. Okay, now I can look at the body without the arms distracting me, which is often quite useful. So I'll turn the cache back on and have a look at it. Let's have a look at the spine. Still see the jitteriness from the shoulder that's left over, but that's looking a lot better actually. I think I'm gonna look at the translate Y in here because that's what's throwing me at the moment. I think the translate Y needs to be delayed. So I want it to go through the body. So this comes down, then the chest, then the body. And I might make this really steep here. This come back quite quickly, like make it a bit bouncier. And it looks like I'm doing some weirdness here, so have this be a slight settle that goes here. Probably needs ease out in here. Cool. Look at that. Cool. So now this starts to come down and this starts to go. But I think the issue that I'm having now is that this is too early. Let's ease out for a frame longer. Starts to get very fiddly at this stage. I don't want this to come back before it starts coming forward, which is kind of being led by the root, so maybe I just need to find another solution for that. And it's the Z. Okay. Yeah, the Z's coming too early, I think. So he's putting his weight on this foot, but too soon, I think. So by delaying that, I can have everything come forward before we get to that apex, and then have this little settle back up. Okay, that's looking better. I like the settle back on the chest is too delayed from the head. Let's have a look at that. This part. Bring that back a couple frames. Bring this back. That looks like. There you go. That's more connected now. Head, chest, body. And you can see that ripple down. Look at the Z real quick as well, since I'm going back into the chest. Phone's pinging. Maybe I'll have this keep going for an extra frame. Then it can come back. It'll fit it with the curve. Sure. Anyone has any questions about what I'm doing and what I'm looking at when I'm kind of trying to break this spine up, feel free. Okay. I haven't at all looked at the translates in here yet, so let's have a look at what this is doing. Like this, so like I only flip between these keys. So he's easing and he's going onto this foot. Sharpen that up a bunch. So it goes onto that foot quite quick. Weight goes onto that foot and then it's released off that foot a little bit. Settles. Yeah, that looks cool. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, it goes onto this foot a bunch. Settles a little bit back off it. If I've done this right, I haven't. That's one thing I like to look out for is usually when you're doing a weight shift, so when your body is shifting weight from one leg to the other, the fastest point of your translate X, where it's moving across onto the other leg, is where the bottom of the rotate Y is. The translate Y, sorry. So try and get that. I think I'm going to select translate X and offset that. So look, the fastest point here is where this is coming down. So it's just a frame, but that little frame makes all the difference for this feeling weighty and connected. And now look, this translate is working for that. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to put it down onto the hips, onto the rotate Z. So that when he's more lent on this leg, so more over to this side, this is more lent up, tilted upwards. I'll snap it so I can see where I had it before, paste this in. So yeah, I had it way too early, but I'm going to scale it up so that we get closer to the pose that we had before, because I don't want the pose to be too different to what we had before. And now we've just gained this little bit of overshoot information from when the weight goes over and comes back. So what we should have, this maybe a frame or two offset. I'll do a frame. So it's connected, but it's not one-to-one. So yeah, now you can see that rotate when he goes onto that leg for the weight. You can see that leg taking the weight and then a little bit of it coming back off to settle, which might be too much. I'm going to give it another frame of extra settle because it's quite quick and tone it back a bit. If it's a feminine character, like a big hipped character, then I like to push this thing quite a bit. But for a masculine guy, it's just a subtle thing to add on the top. Cool, that's looking better. I'm trying to think now, as a big picture thing, if this is too early. The dummy is here. Dummy. Would I come around and say it, or would I say it as I'm coming around? These are the kind of things I'm thinking about, so... Dummy. Maybe this is a time that I would look back on my reference, just to see what I naturally did when I did the reference. So I'm going to open that up and have a look.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy. Dummy.
It's kind of as I'm getting down, right? So I think I'm too early. So I'm going to push back a bunch of this animation that I've done. Maybe from like this key. I'll push back all of this. 3 or 4 frames. We'll try 3 frames. Looks like it messed up some stuff. That chin especially. Maybe I'll just fine on the way back, but here it's broken. Gonna blend that back so it's barely moving. Cool. So now we'll see, hopefully he'll be a bit more in time with the audio. Yeah. That's a bit more in time with the audio now. Bit dead at the end, but hopefully when I do the breathing pass and some other stuff a bit more polishy, not going to feel as dead. So we're going on to this leg, so I think what I want to do is connect the knee a bit. So we're going down the chain again. Head, neck, chest, root, hips, legs. So now I'm going to do the knee. I'm going to have the knee come out wider as his weight goes down. So his weight comes down here. I want that knee to come out wider so that the weight's more on that leg. Let me just ease this out here and then have all of these be this one, and I can maybe even use Animbot to overshoot because that's a little overshoot thing. Here, overshoot it here. Then it can come back and settle for these two. So I'll ease those in. Turn off the overshoots because it gets a bit confusing otherwise. And you can't really see it, but hopefully you can feel a little bit of that knee coming around. But it's quite difficult to see. You can see the leg deforming a little bit to follow along with that. Cool. I definitely want to make this nose arc more pronounced because at the moment it kind of hits on this frame. I think that's the neck, so I'll quickly go in and add this a bit. Having this have a little bit more distance to go. There you go, it's a bit more padded. Cool. Let's bring back the arms and have a quick go on the arms, and then I've kind of done a first spline pass then. Camera's still alive, and we've been animating for an hour. Nice. Okay, I'm going to do this front arm first, because that's the one I was kind of doing. It's not tight at all right now. I think I kind of want it to start coming up here. So look, he's kind of tensing into his own shoulder a bit when his head's anticipating. Or do I? Because actually he's not doing this. That was what I was naturally doing. He's actually doing this. Which I guess maybe a little bit you'd do. I kind of do it naturally. So yeah, let's keep a bit of this. Have it where I had it there, here, and then just ease it in. I think I want to delay this arm a bit. And then for dummy, it's going to really tense up. I don't want this hand in front of the face. That looks gross to me. I think I just want to ease hard into this. Come back and settle. Maybe it would be cool if, whilst this is going screen right to left, this is going left to right. Let's look at the Y curve quickly. Make sure it's doing what. Coming in. Going back. Overshooting. And then this settle back down. I have these sort of bias. That's a bit much, but I have these sort of bias. This hang time here. Well, let's see what that looks like. Looks like it comes up here, right? Need to clean all of this up, really. Yeah, look, we've got some weirdness going on, really. Just ease that out. Cool. I'm gonna auto tangent these because there's something happening. Like I overshot down on the last one, and I want it to come up and settle a bit here. Cool. What's happening with it? Comes forward and then back. That's kind of... It's here. It starts to pop. I'm looking at like this edge here, this corner. Going back, back, back. Holding back and then popping forward, which is kind of weird. So I'm kind of counter animating to the body at this point, but I don't want that to come back in as much. At least if I want it to do that, I want to ease it out a bit. So instead of holding here, I want this to come in a bit. There you go. And I think I want this Z to overshoot back down. This down. Up. So what's happening? This is all just inheriting it from the body. Have this overshoot down and then back up, which is what I might have originally had. Cool. Still no face. No. We'll get onto the face. I'll do a full body pass, spline pass, make sure everything's kind of where it's going to be. Because like mouth shapes and things I do to camera quite strongly because I like doing graphic mouth shapes. So I want to make sure the body's kind of in the general area it's going to be in. So it comes up, comes back down, bounces a little bit back up. But that bounce up might be too much. So here's where we're getting some weird spacing, right? Comes up here, and then here it kind of holds. So I might just have to do this one once and have this come up sharper here. So that it continues to move. It's just counter animating to the body at this point. I'm just looking at the shoulder. I don't like the spacing on the arm at all, but just that shoulder is getting a lot better. Cool, so now maybe I look at the arm. And what's happening with the arm? He's tensing inward. In terms of this main arm controller, that's kind of, when I do this, I'll do it to camera. It kind of comes forward, the elbow. I tense in, so this bit comes in and that bit goes forward, the elbow. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on trying to get. And most of that's going to be driven by this Z by the looks of it. So let's have a look at that. That's going back actually. Maybe I want to flip this whole damn thing. Lift these up. Here, those nice apex. And it goes back and sells. I'm not liking its positioning because it's covering the face. So that's something I need to work on. Yeah, the positioning is gross. But in terms of like the mechanic of it coming forward as that tenses up, is a lot better. Yeah, that's a lot better. I'm a bit smaller. How am I gonna not have this go over the face? I have to cheat something, aren't I? Let's just go through and do the whole arm. Maybe something in the X can get it to not go over the face. Maybe I want it more around here, right? Here we go. Okay. Tensing up, coming forward, easing out. Comes around. Maybe I want it to do a little overshoot and settle. Have a look and see what that looks like.
Dummy. Horrible dummy.
Feels kind of too much. So what I might do is, instead of having it dragging quite as much, bleed a bunch. I don't like how much that overshoots back. I'm just going to blend this all back to this one. I wonder if backseat animating would be a thing with these streams. Also, hi, Big Daddy Work. Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe. I mean, it's kind of a thing with, if you work in a studio, backseat animating is definitely a thing, but it's kind of good because when you look at a shot for so long, it's really good to get fresh eyes, especially if it's some pro who knows exactly what they're talking about. Okay. So again, I think I might continue to lead this. So I might have it ease even earlier and just bring this all like a frame or two back and see how that looks. Now the arc's kind of messy. It's too like dirt instead of blended. That might be more to do with the wrist than anything at this point. Maybe I'll tone this down a bit. I don't want it over the face at all. I want that line. I want there to be a gap between these two for like silhouette purposes. Yeah, I think it's too early now. That's looking better. We haven't looked at the Y on here and it looks messy. So let's see what that's doing. So what is the Y actually doing? The Y is kind of the in and out. So it's a bit of the X and the Y that's doing the in and out. This is forward. And I kind of want it to come back, overshoot and settle. So let's try that and see. Press for a send that you finished the character animation. Do you create lighting for the final render or do you send it to someone else? So luckily my girlfriend's a lighting and comp artist, so if I want something for a reel and I want to make it look extra nice, I've sent it to her. So she did a bunch of the previous stuff if you look on my Vimeo. This big shot that got a lot of attention, for example. But this lovely lighting was done by my girlfriend.
Oh, everything about you is so terrible. You sucks. Everything about you sucks. Oh, everything about you makes me wanna die.
But the lighting really added a lot to this. So that was good. I also realized I didn't have any music playing for ages. So it's back. The music is back. It's not been playing for 40 odd minutes. Okay. Is the Y doing what we want it to do now? It comes forward. And then it is this back. Maybe I want it to come forward even earlier. That way I can have it come back and overshoot this way, which is probably what I want. And then these can ease in. See what that looks like. That's the shot I watched at least 20 times. That's the longest I've ever spent on a shot in my life, that one. It took me ages. Took me way too much. You like that one too? I think it's the idea, isn't it? It's the idea that sells it. I think a bit more adult humor of someone just blistering someone. You don't see too much in animation, so I thought it was a fun idea and went ahead with it, and it worked out. People seem to like that one a lot, and it's landed me quite a lot of job stuff actually. Okay, so let's now move down the arm. So we've done the shoulder, the top of the arm, which controls the elbow mostly, which I haven't really tracked any spacing on the elbow, but it looks okay for now. And now we're doing the forearm. Okay. So we're tensing up. Maybe I want the tense up to happen a bit later so that it doesn't go over the face. Maybe that's what's going to save me here. Maybe we can even anticipate by loosening and coming down with it. And then as it comes back around, tense up. Settle back. Snap this up a bit. Have this kind of overshoot and come back. See what that looks like. Okay, so there's definitely some weird spacing where it's going quite big, and then it's slow, and then it starts to speed up again. So I want to make that super clean. I think that elbow is okay spacing wise. This bit kind of stops and then speeds up here. Might do some tracking. Would you say online exposure benefits is important to job opportunities? Like having a shot like that on your social media? Yeah, it helped me a ton. It helped me a hell of a lot for jobs and stuff. I mean, you can have an amazing shot that doesn't get any exposure, and when you send your reel around, people will see it and be like, oh wow, that's really good. But I've had people come to me instead of me going to people for jobs because of that one shot. Like people have seen that and then come to me with work offers and such. So that's really helped me out, yeah. We're going to try and figure out some of the spacing. So what I might do at this point, this is something I usually reserve for polish a bit more, but because I want to just go in and get it working, I'm going to chuck an arc tracker on here. We can have a look at what's happening. So yeah, there's a big spacing here, look, and then it's slow. So I think that's to do with the big rotate X here. Yeah, it is. So let's just even this out a bit. Now it speeds up kind of where I want it to speeds up and slows down. It can come down, overshoot and so. So if I turn this off and look at this, we can see if it's working. Cool. I think that arm's a lot better now. I should do the wrist. And get a little bit of overlap in the wrist. And then everything's kind of broken up on that arm for now. And when we get into polish, I'll do like clench the fist or get slightly tighter and release and different things like that. That's more of like a polishy thing when I get into the hands. Okay. I think I want to overlap this a bit. I'm in gimbal at the moment. I'm going to go in on 2s and just fiddle with it. I'm going to delay it here so that then it can come in, overshoot in, and then it can come back and settle. It's too much at the moment. I don't want it to be too floppy because it's quite a solid piece. What I might do is I'll make these two tight ease ins and then I'm going to blend them back so they're barely moving. And then I'll look at the curves and see what it's doing. I think it's just a bit too floppy, but general movements in there. So what I might do, let's just tone that down. Okay, so what I might do is use this out more. I'm going to select these curves where the overlap's happening. And I'm going to use push-pull, this one, which is Alt on this little slider. And what that does is, if we're all the way this way, it makes a linear line between those two. And then you can scale to that linear line. I'm going to scale that back a bunch. That a bit more though. Yeah, you get a little bit of that fleshiness in there now. I think it's still, I want it to kind of be tighter to the body. So I might just bring it a frame earlier for this Z. So that it isn't as disconnected. There you go. So it's just a bit of bounce in there, but it's not too disconnected. It's just nicely in there. So what was the Y? Why is that one? Let's also look at what the Y is doing. Yeah, I'm dragging back this way. And then as it comes back around, I'm coming back this way and then overshooting and settling. Similar kind of thing to what I was doing on that one. Drift afterwards. Good. And I did the Z. Let's have a quick look at the X. Maybe instead of overshooting the X, I just ease it in. Keeps going and has somewhere to go. Turns around on itself. I kind of want to make this anticipate longer, because in the head especially, because in my reference it was quite nice how I had like, I'll show you what I had in the reference. In the reference I do this big like head cock. This bit where the face tenses up, the head bends this way, and then it leads it back around.
Dummy. 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 Dummy.
So let's have a look at the head. I think just maybe for these two frames we can lead it round a bit more. But it's keyed on everything. Have it really come around a bit. I don't know why my thing's so much. Oh, it looks like I've accidentally turned on that damn thing. Let's reset the tool. Now the bloody cache is going mental. Oh, we might have our first stream Maya crash in a second, because this has gone to absolute poop. Look at this. Oh my god. Hello? What are you doing up there? Okay. We're gonna have to reopen Maya, I think. Really digging the movement of his chin. Thanks. Yeah, no, I think it's getting there. Sadly, Maya is not getting there. And we're gonna have to close it and reopen it. Previous versions. Oh no! What has happened?
A few moments later.
You know what the real solution here actually is? Copying all the animation onto another rig. Yeah, because the controls seem to be in the right place, I think. Oh no, the controls are up here. But maybe by just copying what's on the controls, whatever's underneath the controls that's moved them won't be broken in this version. So let's copy it. Let's copy the whole animation. Change the namespace so that I'm the other version of him here. Select all of his controls. I think you have to do something special to paste animation 2. Number 1 is this guy. Paste it on. Yeah, they're not synced up here perfectly, which is weird. Okay, well it looks like the old version's the one that's breaking, so let's just get rid of him. Look at this. This is problem solving on the fly, live. Get rid of this janky top line I made. Bang. And his trousers are the complete wrong color again, so let's save this. Okay, let's make his trousers like a blue again, well, orange again. Yeah, I need to redo them sculpts. It looks horrible now. Okay, that's orange. That's good enough for now. Let's play blast and see if it's working and not broken. V6. Okay.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Okay, it exists now.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy. Dummy. Dummy.
Okay.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Cool. Let's do this show sculpting stuff. Show you what I do for it. So Anim Polish has actually just come back out, which is Josh Sable's script. And what I use it for is stuff like this. So what I can do is you press the sculpt button and then whatever I edit to this now before I press it again has like creates a channel which I can use. Let's a bit much now. Get this out. Okay. And I want to use a modeling tool, the smoothing brush, to really smooth that out. In here. They're not selected. I think I need to select the geo before I press the button. Yeah, that allows me. Cool. Let's just smooth this out a bit. Got pressure sensitivity, which is useful. Really calm down this bulge a bit. Love that tool. Hard to not get carried away. Yeah, I know, right? You can literally just go in and make every line clean like a 2D animator at this point. He's literally just re-released it because he took it offline for a while. I'm not sure what updates have happened. I need to re-download it. Okay, and then I can apply this. And that's going to be a lot cleaner than it was before. Close to what we had last time. Move the whole bulge off is distracting. I can do a separate bulge smooth. I feel like there's a control on the bulge here. Look. Let's just stick it in for the whole shot, and then I'll. Camera died. No. Okay, we'll switch to webcam. There I am. Now here's less bulge. I want to do a sculpt for this part as well. Something like I did last time. So let's do that. Oh, wow, that's so poppy. Maybe I'll... Oh, no, I can't do that. I should have done it on a frame where the arm wasn't in front of it so I can see what it's doing. But let's just go in and clean this up ourselves. Get it simplified. Hopefully that's simplified. It's hard to tell because that arm's in the way. Okay, let's just try it. No, wrong one. God. Fly standard. That's what I want. Cool. And that's this one, I think. Yeah. Let's keep it on for this part. I think I'll just keep on for the whole thing. Okay, we're back. We're back to where we were about 35 minutes ago when I started fixing this issue I was having. Okay, we haven't looked at this back shoulder at all yet, so let's do that. Rotate Z. Coming up. Doesn't really overshoot, so maybe I wanted to do similar to the other one. I'll have it overshoot and come back. Give it a bit more hang time. Frame to cell. I just got flashbacks then when the thing bugged out. Okay, that's cool. Let's go through the other channels and clean them up. Going on. Going back. Maybe I'll have it overshoot back and come back again. Too much, but the idea is that. Then it goes back in space and comes forward again. Maybe I want it to go back more. Cool. And X, we already destroyed X because unless his arms go like above his head, you don't really need to use X. Okay. This part of the arm. Go on gimbal because I want to see what's going on. Looks like X is doing the most movement. So let's look at that one. Pretty steady for this whole thing. Easing to down here. Leave these, it's too messy. Do I want to do something? This is where to consider. Maybe I want it to come forward a bit. Out, come forward. That looks like. I'm back. That's the progress so far. What's the progress so far? I'll play blast for you. Bruh moment. It was a bruh moment.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Yeah, it's coming that. It's getting together. There's areas that I want to figure out.
Dummy. Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
I still think this is too kind of bouncy. Okay. Turn this back on so that I can see everything. I'm going to work on... I just did the X, right? So let's look at Y. See what's going on Y. The area that I'm working on. I don't know what's going on Y here, but it looks pretty gross. Let's just... Okay, nothing's happening in Y at all. So maybe we want something to happen. When it comes forward, it turns around a bit on itself, maybe. Okay, this is just coming outwards. Maybe we'll just ease it in. So, keep it super simple. Maybe I'm going to want it to overshoot on Dex. So let's try that. Might be way too late, so let's bring that way earlier. And get a key in here. Have these two E's in quite tightly to this. See what that looks like. More overshoot. Want to be able to feel it. Let's turn on the old cache and have a look. I think this is a bit too late, that coming forward, so I'm going to bring this all frame or two back. Okay, has a little bit of that now. I'll get it in the down the arm and the wrist as well, that will help. Have I looked at everything? See, he's not doing anything right now. What does the Z do to this? That's the in and out that way. Okay. Maybe I do want it to come out a bit more. Please, it's a bit busy. Out. That into the final pose. Yeah, so now we're kind of arcing around that way. Around that way. Useful. Cool. Let's look at forearm. Not doing anything. So let's try and break it up a bit by when it gets to here, which is when the arm stops moving. Is when this is going to be most tensed up. So let's soften it. Then it can probably overshoot back a touch. In. See what that looks like. Or okay. Look at the wrist. Like we're doing a bunch before we even get started, really. So do this, and then do these out. I think in reality this needs to be delayed a bunch. Yeah, and then it can dragging. It's going to get to where it's going to be about here and overshoot forward a touch. Settle back. Okay, so now that's kind of delayed from the rest of it a little bit. More of a reactionary piece. Cool. Rotate Y. Maybe drag it inwards. Have it flick back out. And settle back again. There you go. Now it's doing a little arc. Too much, but so I'm going to scale that down. Oh no, wrong one. Flashbacks again. Yeah, the caching is really buggy. And we haven't looked at rotate X yet, so let's do that. Maybe we can have this ease out and overshoot down here and come back. So all the channels are doing stuff. It's all kind of broken up and you get this little move here. Just keeps it kind of reactionary and fleshy and organic. Ease this back a bit. This so it has a bit of somewhere to go. Cool. I've gone down that arm now. So I think I've done sort of the pass that I do at this stage for all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play blast the whole thing, fresh look, and write down any kind of notes that I see. So, alright, I'll look through it first.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy. Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Cool.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
So this hold here from about 22 to 35 is super stiff. Stiff hold, so we'll have a look at that. Fantastic, thank you.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable.
I think the deplorable accent is too kind of bouncy. Too bouncy. I want it to get into that pose and we'll have a bit of that residual movement, but it's too much at the moment.
Dummy.
And
Spare me the
the ending
comedics,
hold needs a bit of love as well.
dummy.
But I think that might be covered by the breathing. So it's just those two main things.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Yeah, okay, so let's look at those two things. Look how dead this is. Okay. Smooth this. So when I'm looking for dead moments in this hold, it's usually because the curve's gone flat on some of these channels. So stuff like this, where it looks like dead really, isn't it? Gonna keep that easing through here. Okay, so I looked at these channels. Let's look at the translates as well and see if it's dead. Yeah, that's dead. So Anima actually has this smooth rough if you hold down shift, which just kind of gives everything more looseness to it, which sometimes you don't want because it'll be too flowy, but for instances like this where I'm just hitting a wall, quite good to do. Start this easing down here. I think I've looked at all of these curves now. Maybe, or not. This one looks dead. Okay. Cool. Let's do the same in the chest. I'm going to go through and see if anything's dead. I only really did the Y on the translate in here, so let's just smooth this out so it keeps stuff going. Get rid of the keys that are causing weird bumps. The rotates is what I'm really looking at. Yeah, this is super dead. Keep that moving around. Again, delete any of the keys that are causing kind of bumps. It looks okay. Let's maybe get rid of this key. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Look at the neck. Really getting confused on itself, isn't it? Let's just eat. out quite tightly. Get rid of these lumpy keys. Any other channels that are dead? Got some weird stuff going on, but it isn't dead. It's okay, to be fair. Cleaning up some of these curves. Maybe I don't need that at all. This looks okay, but maybe I'll do a bit of a smooth just to keep it moving. Okay, that's the neck, and let's look at the head as well for this area. Seems okay. The Y, definitely dead in here. Break it up a bit, keep it moving. Dead. Sharply comes out there, doesn't it? But keeps moving quite well. Okay. Hopefully that's a bit less dead now. So let's play Blast again and have a look. Okay. Okay, that hold feels less dead now.
Spare me the comedic.
It's subtle, but it just doesn't hit a wall anymore. I smoothed all of that stuff out.
Comedics, you deplorable dummy.
So now my main
Dummy. Deplorable dummy.
yeah, my main issue now is how bouncy this is. And I think a lot of it is the chest and neck, because I've done a bit of translate on the head and on the chest for this up, so I'm just going to scale that stuff down. Hopefully that gets it to a good stage. Tone this down. Not necessarily. It depends what you want to do. I think for feature animation, there's more acting shots than action ones, right? Like most of the time, it's characters talking to each other over anything else. But there's definitely lots of action as well, so I guess it depends. But like games and things have tons of action. But for me, that was the area I wanted to improve on, so that's like what I focused doing a lot of my time on this year. And it worked out because I've landed a feature gig now. It might be a bit of the rotate as well. It's too much. Go through and tone down the rotate X on these ones. It's this section here. Blend that back a bit. Or not necessarily that section, but this overshoot. Let's play with that. Bring the curve up as well. I'm going to do that push-pull thing again. Oh. Looks like I didn't press Alt, I pressed FN. Tone that down. Maybe I should come over to this area and really focus on it. Yeah, that's feeling a bit more solid now. Let's have a look here. It might still be a bit too much, but let's have a look.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Yeah, that feels more solid now. As he goes up, he isn't as floppy. We still have that residual information in there, but it's more solid. And that hold doesn't die as much. And it's only going to be more alive when we get to breathing and we get to like noise and things.
The comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Cool, let's watch it a few more times.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
There's a first spline pass, I'm pretty happy with that, I think. I think it's got most of the information there. The lead and follows are there. Once we get the face in there, and then we really get picky on some spacing. And that's when I go in and I track everything. So I'll track the cog and the chest and the head, the nose. Make sure that everything's kind of in arc and super smooth and snappy, nice timing and everything. But I think for today, that's pretty much it. We finished this pass now. Took me 2 streams to get there, especially with all the technical difficulties today.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable.
So I guess unless any of you guys have any questions, I'll dip out. But if any of you have any questions, then go ahead. Why don't you like the bouncing of the chest? For me, it's okay. For me, it looks amazing, actually. I think for me, it's... I'll act it out for you. So he's coming... Out back. This baggy jumper makes me look chubs. This is where I need the other camera. So he's going like this, and there's a little bit of residual. But I think I want to... He's tightening up, right? So his arm's tightening up and his spine's tightening up. As he's saying something, he's tightening up. So I don't want as much. If it was like a looser thing where he was moving, you know, more fluidly, then yeah. But because it's quite a tight thing, yeah. So hopefully that makes sense. It's more to do with hitting that pose clean, and he's tensing up, and it's hard, and he's getting into it instead of flopping about a bunch. So it's toned down a bit. It's still there. And when we get into polish, we'll tighten it up a little bit and make all the spacing nice. That arm coming around doesn't look great to me for some reason. Maybe it's a spacing thing. Like it holds here for a frame and then just zooms back in. Whereas maybe it should be one continuous move around. I think that's kind of broken. And then that shoulder is too far out and it looks kind of broken. So maybe I'll do those real quick now that I've noted them. I'll note them down. Here's this shoulder, yeah. It's just too far out. Maybe I can use some of the translate to cheat this. Where's what? Yeah, let's just make this 1 and then we'll be able to see it. Yeah, I'm going to cheat it in so when we get to the final pose we're not as far over. Ease this in as well. Still pretty wide on it. But we're not that wide. You know, we're this wide now, which is a bit toned down. So I've just kind of cheated it in. And then the other thing was this elbow spacing. So what I'll do is I'll chuck a tracker on it. We'll have a look. Okay. The arc's not very nice either here. Kind of awkward to get this arc right. Without doing this, cheating the elbow. So let's cheat the elbow. We're getting to slightly more polishy stuff at this point, so let's start cheating some things. Just gonna make sure it's keyed on 1 so that I can do this. Have it come back around a bit sharper. Okay, that arc hasn't updated itself at all. Probably because we're on the wrong joint. Let's look at this one. Okay. Big spacing. Big spacing, medium spacing. And we can come back and sell. I think it's this frame that's too small. Thought that might look a bit better. We did those 2 slight fixes that I had. Let's have a look at it. Do you use layers often? I'll use layers for like breathing. So when I do a breathing pass towards the end when I get to polish, that'll be a layer. I'll use layer for some face connectivity stuff. So when I'm connecting like cheeks and things, I'll often put those on a layer so that I can connect them both to the eye mask and to the mouth. I'll get into that when I go on to it. I did talks about it a little bit in a lip sync video I did a while ago. And I'll do it for pose changes. So sometimes if I want to change a pose for a number of frames, so it's already got, if it's too late and we've already got animation in that area, I can use a layer and blend into a slightly different pose and back out again. So if I want to like tweak a pose for a peel or something, sometimes I use it for that sort of thing as well. Okay, let's look at him.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Coming together, isn't it? Really
Spare
coming
me the
together.
comedics, you deplorable dummy. Spare me
Yeah,
the
the biggest thing for me now is that hold at the end. But that's fine, it's gonna be breathing and all sorts to keep it alive. Fingers, lots of fingers stuff in the body still. But we'll get to that when we do polish. And then obviously face. But yeah, I think I'll call it on that. So, switch to my camera. There you go. So the next thing I'll do is face pass. So we're going to do lip sync and that side of things. And then we'll get on to like face polish, body polish, tracking everything and just really like getting it super nice and tight and clean. And then we'll do like breathing and noise and all these kind of things to make the keep alive like super authentic and nice and organic. Thanks guys. I'll call that now. See you next time. Bye bye bye.